A Florida man was robbed of his Submariner Blueface Rolex watch and Platinum Amex credit card during a late-night tryst with two young women at his home in the town of Lauderdale-by-the-Sea. The incident unfolded at around 3 a.m. on December the 4th of 2022, when the victim met the women outside of the rooftop bar in Fort Lauderdale where they shared drinks. They then exchanged contact details and agreed to meet up later. After an hour had passed, the man met back up with the women and drove them to his residence. They shared some more drinks, but the man eventually fell asleep. When he awoke, the women, as well as his Rolex watch, which was estimated to be worth $25,000, and credit card were nowhere to be found. Investigators determined through surveillance video at the rooftop bar that the women involved were in their mid-20s and had black hair. As of the latest updates, the Broward County Sheriff's Office sent a Crime Stoppers alert seeking information from the public regarding the two suspects.
Today on They Will Kill You, you're able to say goodbye to intrusive ads, spam emails, and data breaches as we partnered up with Incogni. Now, Incogni is a revolutionary service that puts you back in control of your data by proactively contacting data brokers on your behalf, demanding the removal of your personal information from their databases. Say you signed up for a free newsletter, for example, only to be bombarded with spam from unknown senders. With Incogni, bid farewell to unwanted emails and restore peace to your inbox. Their expert team will swiftly reach out to data brokers, ensuring your personal information is scrubbed from their databases to prevent further spam intrusions. Or after researching a medical case, you suddenly find yourself bombarded with ads and promotions from services you've never even visited. Don't let your browsing history dictate your online experience, and let Incogni step in to protect your privacy by removing your personal data from data brokers, giving you the freedom to browse without being haunted by irrelevant ads. Stop being a victim of privacy invasion. With Incogni, your personal information stays where it belongs, with you. Secure your digital footprint by visiting incogni.com/they will kill you. Oh, and the first 100 people to sign up using the promo code they will kill you will even get 60% off.
Number 10. Yomna Fuard. An escort in Miami Beach, Florida, allegedly drugged and robbed a male client in March of 2017. 31-year-old Alain Renee Galette was outside Dream nightclub where he met a woman named Amina, aged 21. The latter reportedly suggested that the two of them go back to his place. After the two had intercourse at Galette's home, the man fell asleep. He woke up to discover that Amina was gone, along with clothes, cash, and jewelry, valued at $32,000. At around 3 a.m. on April the 29th, Galette spotted Amina outside of the Rockwell nightclub. He confronted her on the street and contacted the police. Amina was arrested on charges of grand theft and using fraudulent identification. Detectives learned that her real name was Yomna Fuard. Surveillance footage confirmed that she'd entered Galette's residential building and left by herself with his belongings. She was held in lieu of a $50,000 bond at Turner Guilford Night Correctional Center in Miami. Fuard was also connected to similar thefts throughout the East Coast, stretching all the way up to New York. She later took a plea deal for her Florida cases, the details of which were undisclosed. After her release on April the 25th of 2019, Fuard was extradited to New York, where she was facing 4 counts of grand larceny. No further updates were made after she pleaded not guilty on April the 26th. Number 9. Charlotte Newton. 25-year-old Englishwoman Charlotte Newton, who robbed a 74-year-old man and his friend at knife point, was sentenced to 7 years in prison in 2022. The incident took place at the victim's Hull home, where he was having his 69-year-old friend over as a guest. Newton subsequently broke in with 2 masked men and another woman. She went to the kitchen, grabbed a bread knife, and held it close to the old men's throats as she threatened them. The victims were obviously terrified. Per testimony given in court, Newton and her accomplices left after taking approximately $140 in cash, as well as a mobile phone. The woman was later taken into police custody. On October the 19th of 2021, she denied 2 counts of robbery. During her trial, she admitted to being hooked on heroin at the time of the robberies and indicated she'd needed money to cover debts and expenses related to her addiction. Newton claimed that she knew the victim, having received more than $2,500 from him in the past for intimate acts. According to court records, Newton deliberately targeted the pensioner because he was vulnerable, and she thought he would be less likely to alert the police because of their prior involvement. Following her conviction and prison sentence, it wasn't clear if any of her accomplices were likewise brought to justice. Number 8. Chrissy. A woman only identified as Chrissy was sought by authorities in Fremont, California. After robbing a man on February the 7th of 2015, Chrissy was contacted by the victim through an escort services website. She emailed her picture to him and the two arranged to meet. The man picked her up and they made their way back to his house in the Irvington neighborhood, where they would exchange money for intercourse. At one point, the man reportedly passed out. When he regained consciousness, his hands were tied behind his back and Chrissy had been joined by 3 male suspects. The group assaulted the victim while demanding to know where he kept his valuables. The suspects proceeded to ransack the house, making off with laptops, phones, and money, leaving the man tied up. Eventually, he was able to free himself and called the police. He admitted to soliciting an escort on a casual encounters website, telling investigators that he might have been drugged by the woman. As of the latest updates, it was unclear if any arrests had been made in connection with the incident. Number 7. Nitsa Jean Charles. Florida woman Nitsa Jean Charles from Lake Worth was held in custody without bond for her involvement in a home invasion in Boynton Beach, during which a man was struck unconscious and had several teeth knocked out. On April the 13th of 2016, 20-year-old Charles had commercial intercourse with the 64-year-old victim at his home near Congress Avenue and Woolbright Road. 4 days later, Charles returned with several others to rob the man. She and her accomplices allegedly entered the home through an unlocked sliding glass door. During the home invasion, they allegedly struck the victim in the face with a handgun. The man suffered injuries to his eye and mouth as a result. The invaders subsequently took the homeowner's .22 caliber handgun and threatened him with it. 2 guests who were staying in the upstairs bedroom were also robbed. In the aftermath, the gun, jewelry, a television, and several other items totaling more than $10,000 were stolen. Investigators discovered palm prints at the scene of the crime, which they linked to Charles and 18-year-old Tariq Ely. On April the 30th, Ely was arrested and held without bond. Charles was taken into custody 6 months later. Both suspects were facing multiple felony charges. Records indicated that Ely was found guilty of robbery with a deadly weapon and was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. Number 6. Monica DeJesus and Justin Harris. 22-year-old Monica DeJesus and 36-year-old Justin Harris faced several charges, including robbery, after an incident that occurred on April the 9th of 2017. The pair went to a home in the 1800 block of Valley Drive in East Goshen Township, Pennsylvania, at approximately 5:30 a.m. With a gun in tow, Harris kicked the door down, but was subsequently overpowered by a resident who hit him in the face with a fire poker. DeJesus then picked up the gun and pointed it at the homeowner, while another resident ran away and called 911. DeJesus and Harris then fled in a sedan. They were spotted speeding down the road by a responding police sergeant, who noticed that Harris was heavily bleeding from his face. The officer pulled the suspect vehicle over, at which point DeJesus claimed to have been attacked inside the house that she and Harris had just tried to rob. The latter was transported to Powley Hospital for treatment of his facial injuries. Police discovered that DeJesus was an escort from Philadelphia who traveled to the area to meet a client. When she wasn't compensated for her services, she called Harris, who was waiting in a nearby parking lot. The duo then reportedly returned to the home, where they attempted to carry out the robbery. DeJesus and Harris were taken into custody and booked at the Chester County Jail on charges of robbery, conspiracy, and promoting escort services. Number 5. NYC Tourist. In May of 2017, a male tourist was robbed after 2 women allegedly lured him back to his Manhattan hotel in New York City. According to police, the 79-year-old man from Florida met the women at an Upper East Side restaurant called Club Macanudo. Surveillance footage showed the 3 leaving the restaurant and going to the Lowe's Regency Hotel on Park Avenue. When they got to his hotel room, the women clobbered him and made off with a $13,000 watch and $3,000 in cash. The New York Post reported that the man sustained scratches to his face but refused to be hospitalized. While the victim remembered lounging at Club Macanudo, he claimed he couldn't recall meeting the women or anything else that took place inside his room. No arrests were made in the incident's immediate aftermath. Number 4. Zachary Kent Mills. Harris County Constable deputies responded to a call regarding a female patient at Houston Methodist Spring Emergency Care Center in Spring, Texas on December the 29th of 2022. The victim, only identified by the initials JW, told investigators that she'd met a man on the dating platform Bumble, and the two started a romantic relationship. On Christmas Eve, JW was picked up by the man, later identified as 21-year-old Zachary Kent Mills. They went to Mills's apartment, located in the 8,000 block of Augusta Pines Drive. When Mills's advances were repeatedly declined by the woman, he began punching and biting her in the face. He then allegedly used a screwdriver to attack her and stopped her when she tried to run out the door to escape. The woman was reportedly assaulted multiple times and held against her will for 5 days, during the course of which she was denied food and water and suffered serious bodily injuries. JW was eventually able to seek help from other nearby residents. On December the 30th, Mills was arrested and booked at the Harris County Jail on a charge of first-degree aggravated kidnapping. The latest updates indicated that he was released on a $50,000 bond. As part of his bond conditions, Mills was placed on 24-hour house arrest and could only leave to go to court, get groceries, or meet with his lawyer. He also wasn't permitted to go within 200 feet of the victim's house or place of work. Number 3. Saul Mata Villegas. On March the 18th of 2018, Saul Mata Villegas was robbed at gunpoint while celebrating a lawsuit victory at a motel in the Bronx borough of New York. According to the police, the man's $96,000 cash settlement was the end result of a suit involving a car accident. Villegas was carrying the entire amount in a suitcase when he checked in at the Van Cortlandt Motel. The 30-year-old hired escorts and partied with them in his room that night. Early the next day, the women suggested that they get a friend to bring over beer and cigarettes. Shortly before 7 a.m., 2 masked men arrived, armed with weapons. They barged into the room and snatched the cash-stuffed suitcase before speeding off in a black minivan. Villegas told the New York Post that he kept replaying the incident over and over and that he was haunted by it. He added that he needed the money badly because he was dependent on it to move his family. Detectives released photos of the 3 escorts and 2 male robbers who remained at large. Today's topic was requested by Curirin Master 21. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Pompano Beach Robbery. 2 women were sought by law enforcement in Florida after being accused of theft on the night of December the 18th of 2022. According to detectives, the suspects met a man at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood. The man then brought the 2 women back to his townhouse in Pompano Beach. Surveillance footage captured the moment the pair made off into the night with the man's gun, sneakers, and diamond-encrusted watch. They milled around the property before sneaking out the front door and running through the parking lot with the stolen items. While fleeing the scene, one of the women experienced a wardrobe malfunction. As reported by Local 10, her dress got caught up in the moment. The Broward County Sheriff's Office released the footage, asking for the public's assistance in identifying the suspects. When femme fatales go wrong is coming up straight after number 1, in case you'd like to watch another video today. Number 1. Sarah Richards. On December the 11th of 2022, a woman was accused of concealing a man's Rolex watch in her privates in order to steal it. 33-year-old Sarah Richards was in Las Vegas for a court hearing in connection with an incident in June during which she allegedly stole a $100,000 timepiece. Richards reportedly met a man who invited her to stay in his room at the Aria Hotel. Richards asked the man to take off his Rolex watch, which he ended up placing under his pillow before canoodling with Richards. 8 News Now reported that the man drank more and more wine because Richards kept insisting on it. He began to doze off, then later discovered that the watch was missing. He confronted Richards, who fled the bedroom in a panic. The man followed her down the hallway into the elevator and then into the lobby, where he informed security that she'd stolen from him. They waved the woman down using their metal detector wand, which determined that there was metal somewhere in her genital region. She confessed to stuffing the $12,000 watch inside her privates. A female security officer then escorted Richards to a restroom where the watch was removed and placed in a biohazard bag. Upon the arrival of the police, the victim showed them the drink he'd been consuming prior to dozing off. A white, powdery substance was observed at the bottom of the glass, some of which were floating in the liquid. According to the police, they also found a pill capsule containing a white, powdery substance in Richards' possession. Officers impounded the pill capsule as well as the watch. Richards was taken into custody, charged with grand larceny and using a narcotic to facilitate a crime. Number 8. Jessica Strachan. On March 30th, 2022, Devante Griffin, 28, was reported missing by his mother in Spartanburg, South Carolina. What began as the search for a missing person soon became a murder investigation when Griffin's body was discovered buried in a shallow grave close to Evans Acres. His on-again, off-again girlfriend, Jessica Strachan, aged 28, became a person of interest after police interviewed family members and friends. While questioning Strachan, she admitted her relationship with Griffin had been volatile, but denied any involvement in his murder. Noticing inconsistencies in her answers, officers determined she had been misleading in the information she had provided, and they attempted to bring her in for a second interview on March 31st, 2022. Instead, Strachan fled to Miami, taking Griffin's cell phone with her. Armed with an arrest warrant for obstruction of justice, the Miami Police Department was able to apprehend her a day later. She was extradited back to South Carolina and was charged with murder and possession of a deadly weapon. The presiding judge denied her request for bail, ordering her to be held in prison until and during her trial. Number 7. Mariah Wilson. On May the 11th of 2022, 25-year-old elite cyclist Mariah Wilson was found shot to death in her apartment in Austin, Texas. Wilson was a rising star in the community, having won the Belgian Waffle Ride in California earlier in the year. An investigation was immediately launched, with police searching for leads and potential suspects. Officers discovered that Wilson was romantically involved with fellow cyclist Colin Strickland, and the witness indicated that the pair had had plans to meet earlier that day to go for a swim. When investigators questioned Strickland, they discovered that he was currently living with his longtime girlfriend, 34-year-old Caitlin Marie Armstrong. During the interview, he stated that during a breakup in October 2021, he had started dating Wilson. Even though the couple reconciled after a 2-week period, Strickland never ended his new relationship. This agitated Armstrong, who made several threatening calls to Wilson. Strickland changed his lover's contact in his phone and deleted all text exchanges in an attempt to keep his affair a secret from his living girlfriend, turning their attention to Caitlin Armstrong. Detectives discovered footage of her car being driven by the victim's apartment complex on the day of the murder. While under interrogation, Armstrong refused to offer any explanation as to why she had been in that area and rejected the idea that her boyfriend was still seeing Wilson, referring to her only as that girl. Armstrong was apprehended on May 13, 2022, but ended up being released on a technicality, with police officers rushing to secure a valid warrant for her arrest. By the time they obtained it, the suspect had already fled the state. On May 17, 2022, with Armstrong still on the run, a 9mm gun registered under her name was retrieved from Strickland's residence and test-fired at a Texan laboratory, determining it was likely to be the same weapon used during the murder. As of the making of this video, Armstrong remains at large and police are still looking. Number 6. Tailorship Business. On February 23, 2022, 24-year-old Wisconsin resident Tailorship Business was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, mutilation of a corpse, and assault. Being on house arrest for an unrelated crime on the night in question, she removed the electronic monitoring device strapped to her ankle before leaving to visit her boyfriend, 25-year-old Shad Thorian. A warrant was issued to arrest her business for breaking the conditions of her release. At 3 a.m. that same night, Thorian's mother frantically dialed 911, telling dispatchers she had found her son's dismembered head in a bucket after being awakened by a loud noise. More body parts would be discovered in different areas of the mother's house, including Thorian's torso. When police arrived to arrest her business, they noticed she had dried blood on her clothes, and a search of her van revealed several body parts inside a locked box. While collecting evidence and taking testimonies, Green Bay police learned Shabusiness had been the last person to see Thorian alive. Shabusiness admitted to having visited the victim, but claimed she hadn't meant to hurt him. She stated that she had gone a bit crazy while they were being intimate, and things got out of hand. Her trial is set to start in October 2024. Her lawyers have already expressed Shabusiness will enter a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, having struggled with mental health issues since childhood. Number 5. Shayna Huber's. Ryan Poston, a 29-year-old Kentucky resident, was on the brink of breaking up with Shayna Huber's, then 21, when she fatally shot him in their apartment on the night of October 12, 2012. Huber's had discovered that Poston had plans to go on a date with 2012's Miss USA second runner-up, Audrey Bolt, that same night, after reading several Facebook conversations. After confronting him about the upcoming date, Huber's then shot her boyfriend 6 times and would later claim she acted in self-defense due to Poston's alleged history of violence towards her. She was arrested on December 20th, 2012 and was denied bail, remaining incarcerated for the duration of her trial. Huber's was declared guilty on April 23rd, 2015, but her defense appealed the decision. A year later, the verdict was overturned due to one of the jurors having lied about his criminal record. In the state of Kentucky, people convicted of a felony are not allowed to serve as jurors. A second trial began on August 8th, 2018, and the defense again attempted to describe the victim as an abusive partner. After only 5 hours of deliberation, the jury found Shayna Huber's guilty on all charges. She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 20 years. Number 4. Galen Morris. On the night of June 3rd, 2022, 26-year-old Galen Morris was seen intentionally hitting Andre Smith, also aged 26, with her car by several witnesses outside a bar in Indianapolis. Earlier that night, Morris tracked her boyfriend's whereabouts using a GPS tracker she had placed on his car, suspecting he might be cheating on her. When interrogated by police, she initially denied this accusation, claiming to have merely seen his car parked in front of the bar by chance, though she eventually recanted that claim. Running inside the bar, Morris grabbed an empty bottle and attempted to strike the woman Smith was talking to before the three of them were told to leave. While the unnamed woman remained inside, waiting for her food to be bagged up, Morris rushed outside and got into her car before backing over her boyfriend. According to witnesses, she pulled forward and repeated the maneuver 3 separate times. With her boyfriend trapped underneath her car, Morris then attempted to get back into the car to confront his date. Upon arriving at the scene, the police immediately arrested Morris. She claimed to have intended to hit the unnamed woman, but had accidentally run over Smith instead. Several witnesses had recorded the incident, providing police with ample evidence of Morris's actions. She was accused of vehicular homicide, with the case's prosecutor Marion County stating the defendant had turned her car into a weapon. Up to the recording of this video, a trial date has yet to be set. Number 3. Samantha Stewart. On the night of July 26, 2022, 32-year-old Texas resident Samantha Stewart frantically called 911, telling the operator her husband, Jeffrey Stewart, also 32, had been shot and killed by an intruder. Police responded immediately to the couple's home, and upon discovering Jeffrey's body, detectives were dispatched to the crime scene. Investigators began collecting evidence while detectives interviewed all available witnesses, including the victim's wife and other family members. Samantha signed an affidavit detailing the same version of events she had stated to the 911 operator, claiming she and her husband had been victims of a violent robbery, with the burglar forcing Jeffrey into the bedroom, loudly demanding money before fatally shooting him. Noticing inconsistencies in the woman's statement, Stewart was detained and a preliminary hearing was conducted. Judge Sarah Raspberry ordered an autopsy be conducted to further the investigation and set the defendant's bond at $500,000. Detectives continued to interrogate the suspect, with Stewart eventually recanting her earlier version of events and admitting to having shot her husband while he slept before making the 911 call. No trial date has been set up to the recording of this video. Number 2. Samantha Weiner. On the night of September 21st, 2020, police responded to a call about an ongoing robbery on Beach Boulevard, Florida. After being contacted by neighbors that shots had been fired, upon arriving at the scene, officers discovered the body of 20-year-old Ezekiel Trey Archuleta. He had been shot in the front yard of the home of 22-year-old Roman Stewart Jr., who claimed to have shot him in self-defense. During questioning, Stewart told police that his ex-girlfriend, Samantha Weiner, 18, had been seeking revenge ever since their breakup and that he suspected that she had managed to coax Archuleta into robbing his house. Sergeant Tonya Tatter, one of the officers assigned to the case, believes that Weiner's plotting started the chain of events that led to Archuleta ultimately being killed by the resident in the course of this attempted robbery. Stewart was arrested and charged for possession of a controlled substance with intention to use. No charges were pressed against him in relation to the murder. Meanwhile, Weiner was arrested for solicitation to commit a robbery, as well as second-degree murder for her part in Archuleta's death. Number 1. Stephanie Clark. On March the 5th, 2020, an argument between 31-year-old Stephanie Clark and her boyfriend, Don Juan Butler, 30, turned physical in Minnesota. Clark would later tell authorities this wasn't the first time Butler had been violent toward her. The couple had met on the dating app Plenty of Fish, and they moved in together soon after, along with Clark's young son. Butler had seen Clark talking with another man at the store, allegedly sending him into a jealous fit. After being punched in the stomach by Butler, Clark retrieved a double-barrel action revolver and fired at her boyfriend until she ran out of bullets, only to retrieve a handgun and shoot Butler one last time in the head. She then walked out of the apartment along with her son, knocked on a neighbor's door, and immediately confessed to her crime, stating, "He's dead." When the police arrived at the scene, Clark openly admitted to shooting Butler, telling detectives she just wanted him to stop talking. Her defense attorney, Eric Doolittle, argued it was a case of self-defense, stating Clark had shot her boyfriend as a direct result of Butler's violent and controlling behavior. Doolittle described the abuse suffered by his defendant, alleging Butler would tell her when she could go out, who she could talk to, and even where she could work, forcing Clark to quit her job in construction because it allowed her to be in contact with other men. On October the 14th, 2021, after only 4 hours of deliberation, the jury declared Clark guilty of second-degree murder. Thanks for watching. Would you rather be celibate for the rest of your life or never spend the night with the same partner twice? Let us know in the comments section below.